All right, man, sounds good. We'll go ahead and get started here. We'll keep this one nice and short. I had one topic that I've been doing for the longest time, but I heard a different way of talking about it, I guess you can say. In a podcast when I was listening to, or a podcast I was listening to last week, it's called so habit stacking, essentially. I found it very interesting because, so there's a few different perspectives that I like to share. Like habit stacking is essentially when you do multiple habits at once. But the way that I've always done it is doing the most productive habits at once, but ones that don't take the focus off of any other habit. So for instance, every single morning, I listen to an audio in the morning, right? So in the morning, I'll listen to that audio and then I'll take my vitamins. I will go and have my green shake, all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes I'll do it while I go on a walk, right? So they're very pertinent things that I need to do as part of my morning routine, or I do every single morning, for instance. But there's always an aspect to habit stack where you're doing something that is impacting you and growing you, right? So habit stacking is another pretty way of saying multitasking, I guess you can say. But in high performance culture, habit stacking is a way of looking at, hey, how can I get the most out of every single minute that I spend in the day, right? So it's a simple topic, but I think a lot of people don't figure out ways on how they can be more productive. How can they get more out of every single day? As you become busier, as you become more important, as you become, or you have more things to do or more businesses to build, you're gonna wanna find ways on how you don't have to replicate things or how you can do two things at once that allows you to do more in a day. Because ultimately, we all have the same amount of time in the day. It's just a matter of how productive we can be while using that particular time.
Let's chat about multitasking real quick. I know that multitasking is, to be honest with you, it's a false. There's no such thing of being able to multitask. Now, I always rebuttal that because I think that you can multitask to a certain extent. And what I mean by that personally is, I think you just need to look at the actions and what you're doing on those two specific tasks. For example, walking, you can talk and walk at the same time. Those actions are they're literally polar opposites. And because of that, you can be more productive on that. If one of your habits, like you already mentioned, is going outside and getting fresh air to feel grounded, you can definitely listen to an audio at the same time. You can definitely listen or, maybe do some gratitude while you're walking and just become more aware. So those things can absolutely be multitask. I think habit stacking is a better word though. Yeah. I think multitasking, it is false because, for example, you can't be talking to someone and texting someone at the same time. Your brain physically cannot function on two of very similar tasks at the end of the day. So just draw a line in the sand of what those things are, and just make sure that when you are multitasking or you are habit stacking, make sure that they are opposites and they can work in coalescing together. Okay. Second thing that I'll mention is it's almost like triggers, right? If you guys have read The Power of Habit, it talks about triggers that essentially trigger your next habit, right? So for example, when I brush my teeth, that triggers me to go to bed because it's signaling my mind as a habit that I'm getting into a state where I'm now gonna be going to sleep. So if you think about it like that, if you go for a walk, that should naturally, over time, build the habit of triggering a different habit, listening to an audio, maybe taking a call, whatever that looks like, take advantage of those things. And I think that if you can have things that, again, work in coalescence, one thing triggers the next things, you will have, essentially momentum and like free flow of your habits moving forward. And I think that's why it's very important to have routines in the morning and at night. My routines are very, very systematic. I do one thing that leads to the next thing, that leads to the next thing, that leads to the next thing. To give you an example specifically, I will purposely do breath work first because I want to have a clear mind so then I can go ahead and do some gratitude. After I do gratitude, I feel good about myself. I'm going to go ahead and do goal setting. When you do these things that are triggering other habits, be strategic about them. Be strategic in a way that the first habit is triggering something specific that is actually going to help make that habit stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Brian said it really, really well. When you plan to habit stack, plan for things that you essentially want two habits to be joined. So for instance, a morning walk. I know a lot of people that take calls while they're walking on the treadmill. Like that's a good habit stack right there because you're getting 2 for 1, right? Or they'll do meetings on the treadmill, right? For me, I gotta drive to work, right? Obviously that's not really a habit, but whenever I drive to work, my initial cue is, okay, I gotta turn on my audiobook, right? So right off the bat, I'm check mark. I'm listening to my audio, similar to what I did this morning or what I said this morning or said earlier. Sorry guys, really tired today. But essentially, when I listen to my audio in the morning, I immediately go, I pull out the greens bag, I make my greens, I have that as a drink, I go and take my pills, and then I go and I just sit, right? So be very intentional with how you do it, and eventually you get to a point where you've now saved doubling up on time, right? Because you're using that habit stack ability to be able to do much more in a shorter period of time. So again, in high performance culture, it's like, how can you get more out of every single day? So those are things I would ask myself. A great exercise that I can give you guys that I did with my high performance coach, as well as an ops consultant I actually did when I was trying to remove myself from the things that I was doing in the business as opposed to on the business, was actually tracking everything I did in a day in 15-minute increments. You'd be surprised about how much awareness it actually gives you. Right? So, I've been doing this for so long, I've been doing habit stacking for so long, but when I did that as well, I realized like, wow, I'm doing all of this, why don't I do this at the same time as well? Right? I reclaimed hours in my day, right? Not just by delegating things, but also by being able to put things together that made sense to put together. Yeah. Right? So effectiveness, increasing that level of productivity will allow you to get more out of every single day, and therefore you'll be able to grow exponentially. What I would recommend you do as well is, as you build out these things, I'm a big journal guy, right? So I journal on how I feel about things. I would journal about like the level of productivity. If I had a really slow day or I couldn't get a lot of work done, I'd ask myself why and try to figure out, okay, what are those triggers or what are those things that I did in the day that screwed me over from having a very productive day, right? And a lot of the times it comes into like, I might have answered to things that I shouldn't have answered to, right? So my immediate fix to that was, okay, when I'm in my deep work block, so again, Brian's talking about triggers, I get a reminder, hey, I'm in deep work block. I go and I turn off all of the notifications on my phone. That's no longer an issue. And now I can focus on moving that needle forward on all the core things that I need to move forward on, right? So being very intentional about where you're spending your time and knowing how you can morph certain activities to get more out of every single day will allow you to just, potentially 2x your productivity or your output as a whole, right? And that's what you look for. And that's how, I've been able to reclaim being able to work from 9 to 5 p.m. and not work on weekends, and be good with that, right? It's because I'm able to be very productive when I'm at work. As soon as I'm at work, my mind goes into, hey, get your shit done. And yeah, I think it's super important for everybody to consider those things, because we all have different things, right? Maybe you drive your kids to school. I don't know, maybe you have an earbud in one ear so that you can listen to an audiobook or you can listen to a podcast or something like that. But find areas that will allow you to develop yourself and move you forward in your business and individually as a person during certain actions or certain tasks that you're doing in the day.
Yeah, I agree. I think, going back to those triggers, the definition, I've pulled it up here, the definition of a habit is an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. Think about that. Habits are essentially natural. They come of nature. And if you can prime your mind with, in my opinion, the most minuscule things that will allow you to get into a state of habit. So Eric's example of going into deep work. As soon as he puts his phone on silent, as soon as he turns off his lights, that is a very minuscule task, but it's a step that allows him to push forward and to do something that's a little bit more heavy of a habit, which is deep work. We're actually getting into a very, very high performance state of mind in order to perform high level tasks most of the time, very strategic, where you need to be very, very focused. But doing that very, very small thing allows to naturally create a mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary, right? So think of those small things. Again, a great example is, as soon as I brush my teeth, it triggers me to go to bed. So find those little things that you can do that will involuntary put that next habit essentially easier, allow it to come easier. So I think that's huge. I'd like to hear your guys' perspective. We have quite a few people on here, but what do you guys think is a habit? Like, what is your definition of a habit?
There's no wrong answer here as well. I think at the end of the day, habits are whatever you feel that you want them to be, and habits are different for everybody, right? There's no wrong answer in what a habit actually is, but it's just, the consistency that it brings is really what you're looking for. No takers.
We'll give it a couple more minutes. My laptop is literally gonna die here any second.
Yeah.
Habit is second nature.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And you do without thinking is essentially what a habit is, right? for me, like I know Brian's, brush teeth. I don't brush my teeth consistently at the same time every night. But for me, it's I put my phone away. I'm now going into a wind down before bed. And as soon as I turn on my meditation music at night, it puts my mind into a state of get the hell to bed is really what it is. So
Susan, doing without thinking. Great. Very, very simple, but absolutely, that's correct. That's again, there's no right or wrong at the end of the day. Yvonne, an action you've developed over time, whether intentionally or unconsciously. Absolutely. Yeah. It's those things that, again, like going back to what Sarfraz has said, habit it's second nature, it just naturally happens. And imagine if you can get into a position where you've identified the habits that allow you to become a high performer or allow you to become who you want to be at the end of the day. If you can identify those habits in the first place and you can work to make those actually second nature, imagine the life that you're going to live.
Boom. Anna, I love this one. The small decisions and actions you make every day with little willpower. I think that's really important to consider because we as human beings, we exert a level of power, a level of effort in doing the things that we do in a day. When you create a habit, especially a positive habit, you no longer are wasting your energy or putting your time and attention into something to build out that habit because you've already went through that process of doing it. So again, we're beings of energy. And if we burn out all of our energy, well, we won't have time to build out new habits. We don't have time to do those things as well. So it's so important to do this. And for those of you guys who are listening, I highly recommend track your time in 15-minute increments and do it for a minimum of a week and look back and see what are the things in here that are good and bad, because you'll realize that you'll have good habits that you continuously do, but you'll also realize you have bad habits that you need to stop doing as well, right? So you got to go through that effort, and it's always a refining cycle, but we all have good habits, we all got bad habits.
Absolutely. Awesome, guys. I love how engaged all you are. I appreciate everyone that hops on these every single week. These are more mindset related because we're really big on that. And we strongly believe that it is the foundation to be successful in any business. Even though this is an Amazon community, you guys are all here getting these little nuggets that we've developed over our 7-8 years of personal development, the journey that we've taken, and we want to share that with you. So I encourage you guys to let us know what you want us to talk about, because even if we don't have necessarily a ton to talk about, we will always have perspective. And the reason why the show is called the 1 + 1 = 3 show is because we literally thought of this topic 5 minutes before and we just rambled around it. And that's the power of being someone that has developed themselves. They're very wise. They have a lot of knowledge and wisdom that they're willing to pass down. And we naturally just feed off of each other. Ideas spark in the moment. And it's a very, very powerful thing to be in that state. So 1, share with us what you would like for us to talk about. 2, find someone that you can do this with because it's super fun.
Yeah, absolutely.